Okay, sir. A very
Thank
good
you.
morning and a warm welcome to everyone. I, architect Snigdha Roy, welcome you all to the Geetam School of Architecture webinar series 2022. And this webinar series is organized by Geetam School of Architecture, Hyderabad and Visakhapatnam for all the aspiring students of architecture, all practicing architects, everyone. So the series consists on every Saturday and Sunday. The series has started from the month of August, and Geetam. So with indeed honor, I would like to introduce our director sir also. Um, our director sir is Professor G. Sunil Kumar sir, and I would also like to invite all our participants and our guest speaker and all the faculties in the present in this webinar session. So welcome all of you, and now it's time to introduce our today's guest speaker, and we welcome you sir on board. So our today's guest speaker is architect Nilanjan Bhowal, and now I would like to give few description about sir. So, so, so starting off with a brief description about sir. Just a second.
Meanwhile, let me just know what is the level of the students who are here, which years are they in, which batch?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So before introducing our guest speaker, I would like to say that both Visakhapatnam campus, matlab Visakhapatnam and Hyderabad students of all the years from first year to final year students are invited in this webinar session. So, and also other, we had also invited 425 architecture colleges where and practicing architects and all. So they are actually joining. So even practicing architects and even the educators who are academicians, they have also joined in this webinar. So all of them are in the process of joining. So yes, looking forward to see. So yes, now time to introduce our guest speaker for today. So architect Nilanjan Bhowal, uh, education qualification in 1995, in 1985. So he did the Bachelor of Architecture from Institute of Environment Design, Gujarat, India. He's a gold medalist. And in 1994, he also did post-graduation specialization in energy efficient architecture from Istanbul Technical University, Istanbul, Turkey. And also he acquired scholarship in Ministry of Human Resource Development. And architect Nilanjan Bhowal also did masters in architecture and postgrad from human settlements from Belgium. And sir is the main founder of design consortium, which is in Delhi in Chitranjan Park. And there he has been practicing since 1996 onwards. He has started his own practice, and from 1990, before starting his own practice, he was also associated with Matra Architects and Urban Planners in New Delhi, India, and Architects Atelier in Baroda, Gujarat, and also Ashish Ganju and Mark Warner Architects in New Delhi. And after 1996, he started his own practice and design consortium. So now, and brief description about sir is also that he's the man who goes behind Go Green, and he's one of the leading architects of India who believes in design is nothing but putting habitat in nature. So we are, and his passion for design and architecture made him open his own firm, and his vision is to create spaces that exhilarating to experience while being functional and eco-friendly at the same time. His firm is also involved in designing several residential, hospitality, and corporating building projects. And also, his design philosophy is minimalistic and inspired by nature. His work has always also been published in over 200 national and international magazines. And I would like to give a brief about those in a few points. So he has won many professional awards from the year 2001 to 2020. He has been honored with many awards like Hutko Design Award, IID Regional Award, and IAD awards, Rashtrapriya Gaurav Award. There are many and many design competitions also been won. He has also been invited as guest speaker in many important presentations, in many seminars from 1990 to 2001 in various states in abroad, and also he has presented paper at American Solar Energy Conference and at San Diego, USA. Also presented at Conservation Conference at Greece. He is also associate with many memberships, starting from member Performing Artists Association New Delhi, member of Council Architecture India, associate member Indian Institute of Architects, member of INTAC New Delhi, India, associate member also of Indian Institute of Interior Designs, and also member of India ICOMOS. So today, sir is going to speak about his topic. This is a very special webinar. So the topic which he is going to describe about is connecting with nature, designing for a sustainable future. So it's really indeed honor, and we are really delighted to have you, sir, on board in this webinar, and looking forward to look at all your sessions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Snigdha, for this nice introduction. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank the Geetam College of Architecture for taking this initiative. I love being with students, though I was expecting mainly a student audience, but it's nice to have peers and also other learned professors amongst me here today morning. So I'll straight away start my presentation. It's not about my projects. This presentation is in the form of a story. Because it's meant for students, I would like to start with the story. This all started long, long back. One little boy who used to go back to his mother town in Calcutta in West Bengal. He would love the train journeys, pass through the long fields. He would look forward every morning towards the summer vacations where he would take these long train journeys to his hometown in Calcutta, where he would be able to swim in the little ponds behind his grandmother's house. He would love playing in the mud, getting wet in the rain, playing in the wet earth. Football is a passion for all the Bengalis there. And this little boy loved playing in the wet earth. The sound of the rain, he would sit on the balcony of the house, hearing the rain, which drew him very close to nature. When he grew up a little bit more, he got to visit Jim Corbett, where he would sit with his father on the machan all night, waiting for the tiger to come up. These small little things helped him create a lot of impressions in his mind. He read stories about Jim Corbett in his hunting and how he sat on the machan and hunted all night. As he grew up, he kept going to Bengal for his summer vacations. Movies of Pather Panchali by Satyajit Ray, where this little boy, Obu, was run through the fields looking for that train. The smell of wet earth always enticed him, always drew him very close. He was drawn by nature and the Mother Earth, from which the idols would be cast during the Durga Pujas. As he grew up, he started traveling more. He went over to Maheshwar, Mandu, different places all over the country, just capturing images. In back those days, there was only black and white photography, and he had a small little camera, a manual camera, with which he would capture all these images of how stone could be transformed into beautiful buildings and temples. Modhera, Bhimbetka, the earliest civilizations where children and adults alike get mesmerized by these little old Neolithic period, or even before that, where human beings started living in the basic settlements, rock-cut caves where the first human settlements came about. Further on, he went on to visit the step wells at Adalaj, Patan. Again, the craftsmanship really attracted him, how stone could be crafted into beautiful forms from just a step well. He went on to go to Shantiniketan, the university that was set up by Tagore. Traveling to Nalanda, the first university which was formed in India during the Buddhist period of the 3rd century BC, really attracted him to how education was imparted in a very different way, in a monastic way, where learning could be under the trees or under the open sun. He traveled further to Belur, Padmanabhapuram Palace in Trivandrum, Sanchi, all over the country. For almost 6 months, when he finished his schooling, he traveled all over capturing images because he decided that he would have to study something different and he wanted to know what was his calling. As he sat around towards the end of his journey, he sat at Vivekananda rocks beyond Trivandrum. He sat on those rocks, and as he meditated, he realized that he wanted to become something different, something where he could create something in nature, something that he always dreamt about, something that would bring in nature into all his projects. So he decided, he was inspired by this saying by Ralph Waldo Emerson, that you don't go where there is a path, but go instead where there is no path, and you leave a trail for others to follow. He decided to become an architect and he studied architecture. During the 5 years, he studied all over and again started traveling, this time with an impression in his mind very clear as to what he wanted to capture. He liked capturing nature, silhouettes, appreciating building silhouettes in different forms, the play of light on the forms, and how it created different images. Nature always attracted him, and in all his photography, silhouettes and nature kept coming back. And it formed an intrinsic part of his being, how the nature creates beings, how every part of nature is perfect, and how that can be influenced in his architecture. He looked at the space and the relationship that is between the physical built form and the other beings, the humans, as well as the animals. He decided that he wanted to work differently and make a change. So his vision was to strive and eliminate by the year 2025 any negative impact that his projects may have on the environment. When he started his practice, it was very clear that he wanted to work with a green philosophy and something that would be minimalist and inspired by nature. His working process remained the same. He would go back to nature with his team, with his office, where they would live together, eat together, and work together. His early experiments with nature were where he was invited to design a little resort in Jim Corbett in Uttaranchal. If you remember his earliest experiences as a child, where he would run up the Machan and he had read stories of Jim Corbett, it was just a natural calling that he was invited to design a project within Jim Corbett. He sat there and he sketched. Those images of Machan where he sat in his childhood came back to him. And he decided to build an actual Machan, which would be the entry to the resort. Very simple structures. He designed everything sitting there, sketching, where everything was built with materials brought in from within the site. Nothing came from outside the site, be it the mud, the stone, or the thatch. Everything within the site was used. He used local artisans to create these little beds and sofas everywhere. This is the top of the Machan, which became a little library from where people could sit and feel the nature, smell nature, feel the rain. The smell of the wet earth came back to him always. Structures like this were the only formal structures, where the dining hall is like a stone open structure where you can again be part of nature. The accommodation were simple mud huts because it was the smell of wet earth which really attracted him. The houses were named after little birds. Not a single tree was cut and it was retained, and all the huts were named after the local birds that were around. The structures were simple and minimalist, and you could see the nature fly into even the mud huts in the form of little paintings made by the local artisans on the walls like birds. He went on to work with the Aurobindo Ashram, voluntary work, because again, he was inspired by giving back to the community. A small meditation hall, which he had to design within the Aurobindo Ashram in New Delhi, he decided that it had to be a form inspired by his previous travels. It had the curved vaulted roof of the Buddhist Chaitya halls on one side, and on the other side, a pitch roof, which would culminate and look like two hands coming together in the form of a prayer.
Session.
The structure that evolved was a simple, stark, white building where you could sit inside the building and you were connected with nature and the Samadhi of Sri Aurobindo, where the altar was not inside the building but was outside the building, where nature connected the altar and the person who was sitting inside and meditating. There was no altar inside the building, but the pure form lit up at night and the Samadhi, which could be seen from any part of the meditation hall. As you sat inside the hall, you could orient yourself with the Samadhi that is outside, because meditation is an exercise where you connect yourself with what is within, with what is beyond. So that is what was symbolically represented in this project. That is the vaulted roof, which comes together to form this pitched, large 7,000 square feet of space, which is without any column and can accommodate over 700 people at the same time. It's a green building without any air conditioning in this entire hall. You can see small slits on the columns at the edges where it is cooled with just air. He went on to Ramgarh to design the Madhuban Ashram, which is the Aurobindo Ashram in the hills. It was buildings, smaller blocks, because it's not easy to build in the hills, which were connected with landscape. Again, he went back to nature, sat there for weeks and sketched, and that is what decided what the form of the buildings would be. The meditation space here is nothing but a glass house placed among the hills where you can sit and meditate, yet be part of nature. All the spaces are connected with landscape. Remember his little days of playing in the water and mud, all that came back to him when he designed this ashram. At night, it looks like a building which is in flight, because when you meditate, it is your spirit, it is your mind which takes flight. The buildings merge with nature, nothing juts out. It's always been his philosophy to be part of nature. And as he always said, that architecture is nothing but placing a habitat in nature. He would walk around the campus, again, places he would build where he could see the sunrise and sunset, little structures where one could go up and sit and admire nature. Remember his childhood of the Machan, it came back to him in different forms in every little project. Later on, he traveled to Kashmir, where he was asked to design the Pahalgaon Club, which was by the river in Pahalgaon. As he sat at the edge of the river, he decided that let the river decide the form and the design of the spaces. He diverted the river through the site, and today the river flows meandering through each and every block. From every part of the building, you can hear the river, you can see the river, you can smell it, touch it, taste it. Nature is what dictated his design, an architecture that appeals to all the five senses of the being: the tactile, the visual, the auditory, the olfactory. That is what architecture meant to him. Pahalgaon receives almost 6 to 7 feet of snow. These rainwater canals, the river actually becomes also a snow harvesting canal, which takes care of the drainage system as well. This is what the club looks like on the edge of the river. And frozen in a pause during winter. Another project that he went on to was in the hills of Himachal in Manali. His passion of photography made him sit by the river and decide how he would build. He took his entire office there and they all studied the local architecture, the Nagar castle at Kulu, how structures were built back in the olden days using simple stone and wood as bracings because it is a seismic area. The same inspiration came back to him in a modern way, which described the design of the resort at Manali called the Tall Trees Resort. Inspired by the old architecture, using the same language, the contextual materials, responding to the climate, but in a more contemporary way. Small little log huts were made by the river, pure stone, where you could look out and be part of the river. Small tents again, where you could sit and read and hear the river all day long. Back in the city, he went on to design Green One, which is India's first 5-star rated green home by the Terry. It's a house which gives back to the environment more than it consumes. It's a net zero building and the first one of its kind in the entire country, where every balcony, every deck is full of greenery, and the greenery literally goes into the building. That's why it's called Green One. The spaces are flooded with light. You can see the natural light floating, drifting into the building. The terrace is also full of greenery with solar panels and solar geysers. Another building which was built in the concrete jungle, within the concrete jungle of Gurgaon, was a simple villa called the Tatvam Villa. This got the Platinum Award from the Indian Green Building Council for the greenest home in the northern part of India and the first of its kind, where the greenery literally goes down into the basement. His experiments with water on the left was a courtyard where you could hear the water all day, or even the breakfast patio table where you would sit in the morning and you can hear the water, feel the water, and sense the water all day when you're sitting there reading a book or enjoying a breakfast. The entire house is sustained by a 5 kilowatt energy system. Even conservations were very dear to his heart because they are projects which conserve energy, which give back to nature, are zero intervention buildings where you use local contextual materials and technology to recreate and bring back the old glory. This was the Sri Govindji temple in Manipur, where the roof had collapsed due to subsequent earthquakes, and people had moved out the idol from the building. A simple terracotta building without a roof was the first visit when he came. He had to recreate the drawings looking at photographs and historical books, and he decided to rebuild the roof using old materials, but with a more interesting technology. He studied the local materials available, the local labor availables, and he realized that the weavers over there in the Northeast made nice baskets, which could even take the weight of a human being. So why not create a basket kind of a roof, a vaulted roof with bamboo as reinforcement without using any steel? So this is the first of its kind where an entire vaulted roof was recreated with bamboo reinforcements and lime concrete. The images on the left show the condition that the building was in and gradually how it looked after restoration. The local artisans were brought in because terracotta as a material is a very earthy material. It brought back to him the memories of his childhood, of the wet earth, working with clay, and literally he had to stitch the building which was coming apart at all the corners. Today, the building stands as a new form, and the people of the community have brought back the deity into the temple and I've started using it again. The National Library in Kolkata was another example of his tiring efforts in conservation, a building that was used by the Viceroy General at that time before independence, which was his personal residence, a hall which was derelict and abandoned, a hall which was used for ballets during that period had been converted into the library. He went on to Goa, restoring old Portuguese villas, bringing back the flavor of the Portuguese period in the projects. Using the old traditional forms, nothing new was brought in. Even when he went on to do projects in Bastar, Chhattisgarh, these whole magnificent falls at Chitrakot, which is almost called the Indian Niagara, he sat there and sketched again and decided to use minimal forms to build a resort. No formal structures, there were simple tents where people could stay and yet see the waterfall, hear it, smell it, see it, and even feel it all day long. The tents were luxury, but yes, part of nature. His own studio in Delhi was an experiment which was in several layers. It was a subterranean office which was under the ground like a basement, but it was flooded with light. These steps were like the Kund, if you remember his childhood where he was visiting Adalaj, Patan, the step wells. All that came back to him when he sat and sketched and he decided to create an amphitheater for the office where he could meet his entire office. The office has series of courtyards, series of waterfalls. Again, the water comes back in different forms. It's the rainwater which is harvested on the right-hand side, as you see in the image, which flows as you enter the office. So you can hear the water, sense the water, feel the water throughout the day as you work. The courtyard or the Kund in its contemporary form becomes a space where you would meet his team and work. It also becomes an interactive space during events where the entire office comes together and works together and plays together. Using only Indian materials, yet with a contemporary language and rendered in a very modern way. His own studio, the place where he would sit and read, overlooked a green courtyard. His studio by the lake was a place that he curated for himself in the hills because he was drawn to nature and always wanted to be staying and settling down in the hills. It had always remained a dream. So he created a tree house that was actually perched on a tree. Not a single nail was driven, but it was a structure created with the hands of the local artisans using all the local materials that were available within the site. Small structures where he would sit and work during the day overlooking the lake, or his breakfast patio where he would enjoy the sunny morning. A place where his whole office would go and work because he decided to work in a different way. If you remember, his passion was to work differently while staying in nature. His own house was an example of where one would bring in all the elements of nature and it connected the earth, the water, and the sky. A contemporary rendition of his philosophy. Remember his machan where he ran up? Here, he could imagine himself as a little boy when he ran up the stairs and sat on the machan with his father. Here, he now sits and works on his designs. Small influences in childhood led him to design the space with the machan coming back now in a more contemporary form since he designed the Jim Corbett machan. Offices were no different. His influence was seen in even the corporate offices that were designed. He would bring in nature, grass, and all natural materials to create wonders. Where this office, which was for a logistics firm, he decided to create the meeting room like a shipping container. Another meeting room was like a metal container which symbolized the profession that the office was designed for. Globus Transitos is a logistics company, and everyone had that sense of working for the company, and this created a sense of belonging. In the eastern part of India, in Odisha, a simple, humble residence, yet it used the local stone, which is available, yet in a very contemporary way, where you could step out from every room, you could again see water or greenery. At every level, there was a water body or a terrace garden, as you can see from the front to the center to the back. Every part of the house had some link with nature. He went back to the hills and created something called the Brooks, as it faced a river. And this project was called the Brooks Art House. Brooks Art House because there would be art in the community where people would be living in nature. Again, a project where only the local artisans were used and the local vocabulary was modulated to form cozy Kumaoni architecture, yet with a very contemporary feel, where the rooms and study areas were swathed with warm sunlight throughout the day. When you woke up with the sunshine on your bed, and that was your window. Our window, unfortunately, today is the 12-inch monitor of our laptops. But for him, the window was nature. For him, the weather had to be announced by a peacock and not by the weather foreman, where you could be part of nature, where your idea of fresh air was the outdoors and not the air conditioner, where nature came into every part of the house, where even his letterboxes on the street side were shaped like little birds. Today, Brooks Art House is a celebration of architecture using traditional materials for a very contemporary community. The sun never really sets at Brooks Art House. It wakes up everyone. Even contemporary homes in Delhi, like these ones, were places where nature came into the house in some form or the other. Even a city house looked like as if it was in the forest. A very stark and new project was something that was very close to his heart, where he again sat there and sketched, where the site was surrounded by pine wood forests, and he decided to create small little huts. This was going to be a gated community with 8 villas, but the villas had to be luxurious, yet be part of nature. So he decided to call them cocoons. Cocoons, because a cocoon gives you that sense of comfort, security, yet it could be luxury. What he designed was small pods and cocoons which would come together and become a villa. Each cocoon or each pod became a space, the central one being a drawing room, one part being a dining and kitchen, and one part being a bedroom. They could be stacked vertically or horizontally, and the cocoon can grow organically all around. It would be part of nature and not standing out like a conventional villa. At night, you could sit and watch the stars where there is no distinction between your house, your room, your space, and the outdoors, where the walls and roofs become one, where your window is towards nature. Your living room or your bedroom is always a screen where you look out towards nature. Another site in Almora, which was Sitla Khet, where one would see the whole range of the Himalayas from the left to the right, more than 180 degrees. And he decided to call it Brooks 181 because the view was that of more than 180 degrees. This was the sunset where you could see the mighty Trishul as he sat there and he visualized that this had to have a structure that was as stark as anything, something that would stand out yet be part of nature, where you could sense, feel, smell, taste, touch, and hear nature. The site, which was barren, looked like this, and he sat there and sketched and decided to build something which would be simple huts made of stone and glass and thatch. The roofs were made of, because of the extreme climate, he decided to use materials that were appropriate. The view of the mountains were such that from every part of the house, you could see them, appreciate them. The structures looked like stone cottages with semicircular roofs because it had to enable 180-degree views of the mountains. So from entering the upper level, which looked like a single-storied house, you would go around to the lower level and feel the entire expanse of the Himalayas. This was the culmination of all his experiences. As he sat and watched the mighty Trishul, he decided that every part of the house, including every washroom, every kitchen, every bedroom, would have unblocked views of the mountains. A very contemporary language, yet using traditional materials, something that he calls organitecture. He decided to build and create organitecture, something that would be part of nature, inspired by nature, something organic, inspired by local technology, local materials, local context, climate, yet technologically advanced, and call it organitecture, where you wake up and you go back to sleep, seeing nature all around you. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
I would love to hear from the students and about what they felt.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful journey, how you have described it. And it was like, it was very interesting to watch your journey throughout, like a script was being said of, and it was very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Snigdha. I would welcome comments from everyone, the professor, they're very enlightened people, faculty members who are here, and would love to hear from everyone.
Sir, this is Sunil Kumar, director. Actually, I'm a little indisposed, so I didn't want to disturb the webinar. So I'm at a site. So,
Okay.
but
Thank you for joining.
The work that you have showed. I'm very happy that you have shared your valuable time with our students, and I'm sure that they would have learned something from this webinar, and they would be definitely looking at how to start practicing, and how to develop their practice, and how you have evolved your work. So I'm very happy that you are here, and thank you so much again.
Most welcome. I tried to see, it was not about showcasing my own projects. I wanted the students to understand and feel, because this is the most formative years of their life, these 5 years of architecture, where I wanted them to understand how every experience is going to shape them and decide their philosophy or vocabulary at the end of their education, because they will eventually have to decide on which path to take. Everyone is eventually an architect after 5 years, but it's very important to understand what actually inspires you, what is your calling, and then take inspiration from history, from architecture, from our huge repository of historical buildings and nature. That can decide on the future course of architecture for everyone, I feel.
Hello, sir. This is Shamant Kumar. I'm an associate professor here. It was not an excited, but it was like an adventurous thing. I was always guessing who is that boy, unless and until you introduced your projects. What I feel is today we are learning about IGBC or LEED, but your quest to do things within the nature is like remarkable. Matlab, you had a vision to do things. Matlab, today we we do IGBC or LEED, and we think we're doing something green. Right, all throughout your journey, you never used foreign material, which itself is a great inspiration. I actually feel deprived that if this has come early in my career, I would have definitely joined you. It requires a lot of passion to do. So my question is like, see, if you are running a studio of this level, right, and doing projects of your choice, definitely you reject most of the projects. I'm sure about it. So how do we run in terms of studio, in terms of financial management is first part of it. Looking at your portfolio, client comes with a predetermined mind that yes, I want this, which takes time for you to give that impression to the client. How does these things happen? Was my question.
So I will answer your question in 3 parts. Very interesting question, and thank you for liking our work. Firstly, yes, it was nice that you kept guessing who this little boy was. But it's not about my story. I think there's a little boy in each one of us here. There is a little boy in all of us that needs to come out and flourish, because all of us are unique human beings. Having said that, when we started off, there was no IGBC back in 1990 when I graduated. I was fortunate to do my master's in energy conservation. In 1994, I completed. And back then also, there was nothing about environment. So it was very tough convincing clients to go for a green building or a green home. That buildings had to be sustainable. You had to give back to nature. It was not just my passion. I had to convince the client that you owe it to your future generations, that you are going to leave back something for the future generations. How do you want them to live? How do you want them to survive without any air or water or any materials if you have a totally consumist kind of an attitude? So that was a big challenge in those days, where we had to sit and sensitize each client. And it's been a 25-year-old struggle, of course. And then in 2000s, in fact, the first project that you saw, the Jim Corbett, the Machan with the mud buildings, totally that resort called Camp Folktail Creek. It's named after a bird. Folktail is a bird there, Camp Folktail Creek. And it has no certification at all because there was no certification system. So when IGBC was formed under Dr. P.C. Jain, I happened to meet him one day. And because he, at that time, it was almost 2000, and my resort was done in the 1990s. So I told Dr. Jain that I would like to go in for a green registration for the Camp Folktail Creek, which was built before that. He said, Nilanjan, that would be an insult to the building. You don't have to register it. It is green. I don't need to certify it. I can see it. All the materials have been used from the site. It's handcrafted, made by local people. There cannot be any certification for this. You don't need it. And I realized what he was saying was that we go for a certification for our own satisfaction or for a stamp. But actually, that is the way to build. If we go back to our villages now today, even in Andhra Pradesh or all over the country, people still build in a sustainable way. What people build naturally is sustainable and green. It is just that we have forgotten about it. So then, answering finally the third part of your question, how does one balance and how does one take care of clients and the financial part? See, I remember reading Laurie Baker. He used to work a lot with mud, but he used to tell his client that, look, I cannot charge a fees based on a percentage cost because I am giving you something at a very low cost and I'm working twice as much. And if I work as a percentage, let's say it's a 5% or 10%, whatever you charge, it will be really too meager. So one has to convince the client that look at the value and not the price, a value of what you are giving him, the value of what you are saving to him. All our projects save huge amount of electricity. It generates its own water. It pays back. It generates from the sewage, everything, even from the organic waste from the kitchens, everything is recycled and it gives. Yet it's very modern. There was an impression at some point that a green home or had to be of mud, or it had to be totally rustic or very, very basic. But that's not the reality. You can make it look, you can see all our projects are absolutely contemporary, but inspired by nature. So once you tell them that you are delivering value, and when they see what you have done in actual reality. Camp Folktale Creek, I remember this gentleman came to me and said that, he was a nature lover himself. Of course, he ran a jungle camp. So he told me that, look, I have a budget of about 30, 40 lakhs. I know people do a, 30-room hotel with a 60 capacity. I will need 1 crore or something. I've got 40 max. I'll take a loan and stretch it to 50 lakhs. Can you do it at half the cost? We finished the resort in 10 lakhs. He was shocked. He was shocked. And because it was all mud, all the material, the only thing that we used was labor that we paid for. Everything was from the site. So it can be done at a lot of personal sacrifice. The Chitrakoot project, for example, where we put up only tents. The Minister of Tourism, he told me that, I need a big hotel, a big resort by this waterfall. I said, why do you want to do that? Because most of the politicians, they want to spend a lot of money because that's where whatever their earnings are also. But I said, no, don't spoil this nature. It is something you have, which is nowhere in India. Such a huge, it's almost a 400-meter long waterfall, Chitrakoot waterfall. It's called the Indian Niagara. You saw the photographs, how grand it is. And we designed something again within 1/10 of a cost. Of course, he was disappointed by that it costed so less. And our fees was also less based on that. But the community loved it. The people around loved it. The people of Bastar, which is a tribal area, they loved it. That nothing was touched, nothing was spoiled, that the tents are removable in the monsoons in the very, very difficult period, and it comes back in the winters. They are fair weather tents. Probably they use it 9-10 months of the year, but it remains full all the time. All the foreigners love staying here and not at the 5-star hotels in the nearby town of Jagdalpur. In Camp Folktale Creek, there is Claridge's in Ramnagar, and another big 5-star resort, but no one comes and stays there. People, and the foreigners especially, they love to stay at Camp Folktale Creek because it is part of nature. So once you sensitize people, they will come to you. Once they see the value, because you have to create that feeling where people eventually going for a vacation, or even when they make their own house, as long as you can create that sense of belonging to a place, I think then people don't look at the price. I mean, if you are able to brand your work in a nice way, then you don't look at the price. Then people will never, ever question, and you will never have to negotiate on the price. When we buy an iPhone, do we go and haggle with the price? We don't.
No. Yeah.
You go for an iPhone because you want an iPhone. People went to Laurie Baker because they wanted a house designed by him. People went to Charles Correa because they wanted. And you see some of the best projects of Charles Correa also. The Panaji Art Center, or all his 5-star hotels, even Siddhadedi, Goa, everything inspired by nature and natural materials. I hope I have been able to answer your question.
Yeah, very much, sir. Hope so. Like a child in us also gets up to do after looking at this inspiring presentation. Thank you very much.
So how many batches do you have right now in your college?
We have 5 batches, sir. The final years are in 9th semester.
All the batches are full right now.
Yeah, all the batches are full. 9th semester are in practical training, and they'll be having 10th semester as thesis.
It is just a coincidence that, next Sunday at this time, I'll be at Hyderabad myself.
Oh,
I'm coming for 4 or 5 days. There is this place called Kanha Shantivanam. I do not know if you are aware of it.
Yes, sir, we know.
A spiritual center.
Yeah.
I'm designing something for them. they have an ashram also in the hills in Uttaranchal, a place called
Okay.
designing something there. So I have to meet their spiritual leader. I'll be there for 4-5 days.
Fine, sir. I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, we can connect. In fact, if you feel there is a bigger audience and students whom I can, speak to or address, or it would be nice. I love meeting students. I've
Sure.
been a student myself, and there's a greater learning being with the children. I'd love to come if you can, if you want me to, if you find, some time in their curriculum during the day where you can have at least 100 odd students, 4 or 5 batches put together. I think that would be
Sure.
nice.
Sure, sir. And offline will definitely be more
Yes, on a
motivational and
larger
inspiring.
screen instead of laptop. It was nice of
Yes,
you
sir.
to even invite me for an online thing. But I just realized that, I'm there on next Saturday. I'll be reaching there. And I'll be there in the afternoon on Saturday and then stay on till Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I can find time.
Fine,
In
sir.
between, I have some commitments and meetings there, but an hour or two, I can find time to come and meet the students.
Sure, sir. We'll discuss with our directors and
Yes.
do your call.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So nice. Of you.
Happy to have you on our campus. I will speak to you personally and we will coordinate that, sir.
Sure,
Done.
sure. It
Great,
would
sir.
be my
Great.
pleasure. Yeah, to be with the students.
Our teachers are good in hospitality. Definitely they would be ready and enjoy your company at the camp.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because it's a rather than again, if you see it live on a bigger projection screen and physical presentation where I'm physically present, and then I can take more questions, interact with the students. I don't mind giving them a little jury credit if they have a particular studio going on, a vernacular studio, anything for the students.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Sure, sir. We will definitely, I will personally call you and we will coordinate and see that you will come and visit our campus.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Anybody else? Please feel free to ask question. Don't hesitate. Students, it's a very great opportunity to have Nilanjan sir here. And I was myself a student during that time when he was teaching us also as visiting faculty. So,
Which college were you in? Like that?
sir, Sushant University, Sushant School of
Okay,
first
right.
batch.
Yeah, 1990 and 91. Okay. Yes, I did teach there. I taught at Ahmedabad, then also Baroda, and even in Delhi, I keep visiting.
Yes,
I
sir.
think that's where our learning comes from, being with students. It's a
Yes.
lifelong learning. We don't stop learning. And the best way to learn is with students, because I find them very inquisitive these days and with varied experiences. We had little exposure. They have so much exposure, more than us. And, sometimes it's difficult answering them, but I love it.
Yes, sir. Sir, like, before I ask any question, like, I also wanted to know, like, uh, the way how you have showcased your journey, and if whether it's in any part of the India where you have done all your works and all. So there is some kind of a signature, like we from that work, every architect, yeah, everyone leaves some kind of a signature or some kind of a personality reflect. So, like you're saying, a very simple and economic and very sustainable, and also at the same time contemporary also. So it's very inspiring, like taking two things, like both the things which are so far away from each other, but it requires lots of patience and lots of passion, lot of dedication. So it was actually being reflected in each of your words, and how you incorporated everything in your work, in your speaking skills. Everything was very inspiring. So
Thank you. Thank you
yes,
so much.
sir. Yes, sir.
So students can sometimes be shy in asking questions, but you are free
Yes.
to mail
Yes.
me, write to me. or even follow my Instagram handle. I can put it in the chat box if
Yes,
students want to
everyone,
connect with
if you want, you can ask questions in the chat box as well.
Yes, you can ask. If you're feeling shy, you can put it on the chat box. I'll anyway put my Instagram handle. You can follow me and my projects. That's my personal Instagram handle. And I think the firm is called Design_Consortium. And you can ask me on Instagram in the middle of your studio. I have a lot of students who do post, some interesting things they are doing, working for a crate, and they want some feedback on their design. So they are most welcome. It's a Sunday afternoon, so I kept aside, I think, 45 minutes for discussion. So that's why I ended it a little in 45 minutes so that we could discuss. But if people would like to get back to their weekend activities, I'm physically there. So if I'm there at your campus, then probably it will be better. Students can interact, it's more informal and over coffee. That would be very interesting.
Yes, I think Ishan has a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, Ishan asked.
Good morning, sir. I'm Ishan, fourth year student in Keaton.
Yeah. Ishan, one little request. Can you switch on your camera? Because I would like to associate a face with your name. Yes, doesn't matter. Yeah, you look good.
Okay.
You
Good
look
morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's very nice to look at your journey and the way you weaved it in a story. It was very inspiring, and I would really like to go know more details of all the projects. They were very nice. I mean, very inspiring, and maybe I'm not sure about the questions that I want to ask, maybe a lot of questions, but since you have given a hint of you coming in Hyderabad, so maybe I'm looking actually forward to meeting you and talking in
Sure.
person and have more questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
And
for
yeah, our office is open to having interns. We do have a place every term. We have 4 seats for internships where students from different colleges from Ahmedabad, even Jadavpur, Bengal, from the south, and from nearby smaller areas. You are fortunate to be in a city and you have good architects working in Hyderabad or even Visakhapatnam, other cities around, or even the south of India. But there are people who come from smaller, students who come from smaller colleges. We always encourage them, even outstation students. So Snigdha, if anyone wants to, if you want to recommend someone for their office training, but they should apply well in advance, and they will have to send their portfolio. And yeah, if you like this kind of work, because you must be very clear. That was the whole purpose of this presentation, to orient the students as to how to realize what's your calling. What do you appreciate? Whether you want to continue working as an architect, or there are so many specializations. You can go in for industrial design, you can go in for product design, you can even go in for a specific industrial architecture or interiors or landscape architecture. What can you do further? That's also very important to understand at this stage. So the office training that you do should be chosen accordingly as to what direction you want to work in. You can work in Pondicherry if you want to work a lot in, mud and other things. We are doing not so much in mud, but yes, it's a sustainable practice. But we work with a lot of natural materials, stone, and whatever local materials that we can get. Thank you. Thank you, Ishan.
thank you, sir.
Others, please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Sir has also, our guest speaker has also taken out this time for all of us, giving us time from his busy schedule to address all of you. And yes, thank you, sir. It's like I was not aware that you will be coming to Hyderabad, so it will be very great to have you here on campus, and it will be really inspiring for everyone, not only students but all the other practicing everyone. It will be really great.
Thank you. I would look forward to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And please send me the recording. It would be nice for my
Yes,
own.
sir. Yes, sir. I will definitely send you the recording soon.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you everyone for taking
Thank
out.
you very much, sir.
Sir, I would like
Thank
to
you.
conclude with a small vote of thanks
Yes.
before ending the session. So, for as a token of further information, I would like to congratulate everyone for being a part of this session, and also there will be other webinars scheduled which will be updated in the social media platforms in LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And I would like to express my appreciation to our guest speaker, our participants, for taking out time from their busy schedules. And now, on behalf of Geetam School of Architecture, I would like to close my remarks and officially announce the end of the webinar. Wishing you all the future prosperity. And I further extend my gratitude to our speaker, all the faculties, directors, sir, professor of Geetam School of Architecture, Hyderabad. Thank you for your attention. Stay safe, healthy. Signing off. This is your today's host, Architect Snigdha Roy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Snigdha.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Snigdha.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much for having me over.
Yes,
Look
sir.
forward to meeting you all
Yes,
again.
yes, definitely,
Yes.
sir. This is not actually the end. It's like again the beginning. Looking
Thank
forward to see you live.
And I will bring a similar presentation. I will tweak it so that it's not, you don't have to see the same thing again. It will have more projects and more interesting things that we are doing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Definitely, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.